The sound of paper scattering across the pavement hit me like a gunshot. I opened my front door to find my mail letters, bills, even a package from the VA strewn across the sidewalk like confetti. And there, standing with both hands in my mailbox like she owned it, was Karen, our HOA president, our self-proclaimed queen of community standards, the woman who had spent years fining neighbors for cracked driveways and faded shutters, now brazenly tearing through my private mail. She tossed another envelope over her shoulder and smirked when she saw me. "You don't deserve this address," she sneered. "This community deserves better than your kind of people cluttering it with government handouts." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My kind of people. She wasn't just insulting Mesh, was insulting every man and woman I had served alongside. That package on the ground contained my disability paperwork, the same paperwork I had waited months for, proof of injuries that still woke me at night with burning pain. To see her toss it aside like trash made my blood boil hotter than any battlefield. I stormed down the porch steps, my boots hitting the pavement with a sound that drew neighbors from their windows. "Step away from my mailbox," I growled, my voice low and dangerous. But Karen puffed up like she was daring me to try her. "This is HOA property," she snapped, waving her fat arm like she was a judge handing down a sentence. "Mailboxes belong to the association. If you don't like it, maybe you should move back to base housing." Laughter bubbled up inside me, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. Mailboxes are federal property, and tampering with mail isn't just a violation, it's a felony. And here she was, standing in broad daylight, shredding my rights with her arrogance. I didn't need a lawyer. I didn't need to argue. I just needed the truth. With deliberate calm, I pulled my phone from my pocket and hit record. The lens caught everything. Her pudgy fingers rifling through my envelopes, her smug face twisting with disdain, her voice declaring that veterans didn't belong in her perfect neighborhood. Neighbors stepped out onto their porches, phones rising in unison. It wasn't just my word against hers anymore. It was the entire block watching her commit a federal crime. Karen noticed the cameras too late. She dropped the mail like it was burning her and shrieked, "You can't film me. This is harassment." But her shrill voice cracked as the deputies rolled up, called by the very neighbors she had tormented for years. The officers stepped out, eyes narrowing as they took in the scene: the open mailbox, the scattered mail, the cameras recording every second. I looked them dead in the eyes and said, "She's tampering with my mail. Federal offense. I want her charged." That's when the twist came. Officer Daniels, a man I'd once served with before he traded camo for a badge, recognized me instantly. He clasped my shoulder, then turned his glare on Karen. "Ma'am," he said coldly, "you just made the biggest mistake of your life." Karen's face twisted, her arrogance collapsing into panic. She stammered excuses, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, that she was protecting the neighborhood from suspicious packages. But Daniels wasn't having it. He read her the statute right there on the curb. Interfering with or destroying U.S. mail was a federal crime punishable by prison. The crowd gasped. Karen's eyes darted like a trapped animal, her bravado crumbling with each word. I picked up my mail, brushing dirt off the envelope with the VA seal, my hands steady now. The truth was louder than her lies, and she knew it. The deputies cuffed her, her shrieks echoing down the street as neighbors filmed and laughed, some even clapping as the woman who once fined them for weeds was shoved into the back of a cruiser. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about humiliation. This was about justice. And it was only the beginning of Karen's fall. The cruiser door slammed shut on Karen's screams, but the echo of her arrogance lingered through the cul-de-sac like smoke after a fire. Neighbors didn't scatter as they usually did when police showed up. No, they stayed. They huddled together in small clusters, whispering, shaking their heads, some laughing nervously as though they couldn't quite believe what they had witnessed. For years, they'd endured her bogus fines, her midnight knocks, her lectures about standards. Now they had watched her cross the one line that no one could deny, the federal line. The following week, Karen's name was plastered across the county paper. HOA president arrested for mail tampering. The article mentioned my veteran status, the VA paperwork she tossed, and the fact that multiple neighbors had filmed her in the act. Public opinion turned faster than a summer storm. People who once nodded politely at her grocery store rants now crossed aisles to avoid her. Even her own board members released a statement distancing themselves, claiming they had no knowledge of her independent actions. The court date came fast, the courthouse packed with more neighbors than I had ever seen at an HOA meeting. Karen shuffled in wearing a wrinkled suit, her wrists still bearing faint red marks from the cuffs. She looked smaller somehow, her arrogance muted but not extinguished. She still tried to sneer at me when our eyes met, but it came out like a grimace, her confidence cracking. Her lawyer argued the same pathetic line she had shouted on my curb. She was protecting the neighborhood from suspicious packages, acting in the spirit of safety. The judge raised one eyebrow and asked flatly, "Since when does community safety mean opening veterans' disability paperwork and tossing it in the street?" The courtroom chuckled. Karen's face flushed crimson. When it was my turn, I didn't grandstand. I walked to the witness stand in my pressed jacket, Daisy's photo tucked into my inside pocket, and spoke plain. I told them about the package from the VA, about the months I had waited for it, about the ache that never left my knee since Afghanistan. I told them how it felt to watch a woman who had never served, never sacrificed, call me your kind of people as she threw my history in the dirt. My voice cracked once, not out of weakness, but out of the raw truth of it. And that truth hit harder than any polished speech ever could. Then came the twist. The prosecutor introduced evidence none of US expected, security camera footage from the post office. It showed Karen weeks earlier, slipping into the lobby, pulling mail from the outgoing bin, rifling through envelopes addressed to other neighbors. It wasn't just me she had targeted. She had been stealing for months, snooping through checks, packages, even Christmas cards, looking for excuses to fine or humiliate others. The courtroom gasped. People muttered curses. A mother in the gallery wept quietly as she realized why her child's birthday card from Grandma had never arrived. Karen's composure shattered. She jumped to her feet, shouting that the footage was fake, a setup, a conspiracy against her leadership. The judge banged the gavel, warning her once, then twice, before ordering deputies to sit her back down. She slumped into the chair, her face pale, the queen stripped of her crown before the entire kingdom. The verdict was inevitable. Guilty of mail tampering, harassment, misuse of authority, and multiple counts of fraud uncovered during the investigation. The judge's words rang like a church bell. You abused your position, terrorized your neighbors, and treated federal law like a suggestion. This court sentences you to 1 year in county jail, 5 years probation, and full restitution to every victim of your actions. The room erupted not in cheers, not in cruelty, but in collective relief. Years of intimidation dissolved in that one gavel strike. The neighbors who once whispered in fear now stood taller, shoulders lighter. For the first time in years, we were free. Afterward, people gathered at my fence line. They brought casseroles, handshakes, even apologies for staying silent so long. One man said, "You didn't just defend your mail. You defended all of us." And maybe he was right. Because this wasn't just about stolen envelopes, it was about dignity. About proving that no one, not even a bloated HOA tyrant, is above the law. Sarah hung the wooden board on our gate where everyone could see it. My mail, my right. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything we had endured. Kids passing by asked about it, and I told them, it means no one gets to take what isn't theirs. Not your toys, not your rights, not your future. Life slowly returned to normal. The HOA reorganized, this time under honest leadership. Fines disappeared, replaced by community projects. Neighbors who had been strangers became friends. And Daisy? She still snored on the porch, blissfully unaware she'd once been accused of being a robot, still wagging her tail every time the mail truck pulled up. And so I ask you now, as I write, to laugh Karen out, to hold her accountable even when it meant dragging the HOA into the spotlight. Or should I have handled it differently? Share your thoughts, because justice isn't just about one man's fight, it's about a community deciding what's right and wrong, and standing together when it matters most.